Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Nerdy Movie News Roundup. It is the show where we round up all of the latest news in the world of nerdy movies. My lips are kind of shiny. I'm noticing that on the camera. The reason for that is because I had to lube them up before we started recording. They were feeling a little dry. So that's why, if in case you were wondering. We have a lot of stuff to talk about today, so we shall not dilly-dally. Let's get into it. First up, we got a new trailer for Deadpool and Wolverine. It was cute, you know. But by the way, you might want to skip to the next topic if you don't want it to be spoiled for you, because I'm about to bring up like a cameo that was in this trailer. So I'm gonna bring it up in 3, 2, 1. Leave if you don't want to do it, or if you don't want to know. Just I have timestamps. You can skip to the next topic. They bring back Sabretooth. Where is he? Here he is. Apparently, it's the guy from like the first X-Men movie. I don't even fucking remember who that is, who that actor is. I'm not even gonna lie. But yeah, I don't know. It's a cute little trailer. There are some funny jokes. See right here, Deadpool is kind of going like, "Oh my gosh, you look like shit. You have swords in you. People have been waiting for you to fight Sabretooth for a really long time, and you need to look your best." And Logan is like, "Shut up, bro. Shut up. I'm the straight man, and you're the goofy guy." And, you know, it's a fun little bit, I guess. I don't know. Doesn't necessarily move the needle for me. I'm still, like, about as excited as I was beforehand. I'm not more excited nor less excited. But I don't know. Maybe there are people that were, like, super invested in this guy as Sabretooth that are like, "Oh, my gosh, this guy is back? I can't believe it." If that person exists, then good for you. But yeah, otherwise, Deadpool 3 still looks okay to me. All right, next up. We got a trailer for Batman Caped Crusader. If you don't know what the show is, it's a new Batman animated series. It's actually coming to Amazon Prime, as you saw there. Very interesting that Amazon is getting this. It seems like Warner Brothers Discovery their like new strategy is that they want to sell some of their content off to other streaming services and other platforms. And I actually think that makes a lot of sense because, like, if you're a DC fan, like, you're going to be getting DCU content on Max, right? Like, Batman Caped Crusader, like an animated Batman show, isn't necessarily going to drive new subscriptions to Max because if you're going to watch this show, you're probably already subscribing to Max because you're going to get the Penguin, you're going to get, like, you know, the Lanterns, like live action show set in the DCU, and like there's just going to be more DC content. So it actually makes complete sense to me that Warner Brothers Discovery would just like sell some of their DC content off to other platforms that isn't necessarily going to drive more subscriptions. But anyways, aside from like all the fucking industry talk, I think the show looks great. It is. I think it was Paul Dini, or somebody that worked on the original, or Bruce Timm. I don't know. One of them, one of the architects of the old animated series is coming back for this, and this is very much in the vein. As you can see, it's very much in the vein of the animated series. It's not like a follow-up, though. It's like its own thing. It's set in the 40s. Like, I remember reading an article about it. Like, they mentioned that, they mentioned that it's going to be kind of a bit of a grounded show in the 40s. So Bruce isn't going to have all of the high-tech technology of the modern day. As you can see there's, like, Barbara Gordon. I think that's Renee Montoya. You know. You have a bunch of cool, like, villain designs as well. Let's see. Let's get to the villain. This is Catwoman, by the way. Harley Quinn looks cool. That's Harvey Dent. So we're gonna get pre Two-Face, and then apparently, I think I forgot. So somebody said in the comment section of my reaction video, that apparently this is somebody called Onomatopoeia. Literally never heard of this villain, but apparently he just like says like and when you listen to the trailer, like he says like bang because he says onomatopoeias as he's like killing people, which is kind of a fun concept to be honest. But yeah, I don't know. I just think it looks really cool. I recommend watching the trailer as well. Also, kind of cool. Are we gonna see him again? Where is he? Where is he? Sorry, I'm trying to find Alfred. Fat Alfred. Look at this. It's Fat Alfred in the building. But yeah, I don't know. Cape Crusader looks cool. All right, next up. So we're gonna look at some Superman set photo pictures. There are a lot of them, and I will warn you, some of them are a little spoilery. But what I've done here is I've compiled all of the ones that aren't really all that spoilery, right? That are just sort of looking at the suits and stuff. But once we get to the more spoilery set photos, I'll let you know, and at that point, you can move on to the next topic. Again, I timestamp, these videos. So, yeah. I will let you know when to move on to the next topic, but just wanted to warn you about that. But yeah, we have a bunch of set photos for Superman. So this is that same picture, but scaled out a bit. And I gotta say, I like the suit. I like that it looks kind of alien. I know people will look at the lines on the suit and be like, that's an MCU design. But I don't mind that, to be honest. I don't even mind MCU costumes. I think they look fine. I don't know. To me, it looks very alien. And I like that. The lines make it the design of the lines make it look kind of alien to me. I also don't care about the trunks. I'm not somebody that really wanted the trunks. I would have been fine without them, but I'm also not ew, trunks, ew, it's so outdated. It's I don't necessarily think that either. I also like the cuffs for whatever reason. I like that they're not straight. You know what I mean? Yeah, I also like the collar personally. I know some people don't like the collar. I don't mind the collar. But here's the thing as well. I don't personally get super invested in how how superhero costumes look either. It's a Superman suit. It's very easily identifiable as a Superman suit. It's fine. Then we also have Mr. Terrific back there. I'm not sure how I feel about Mr. Terrific suit. I guess it looks kind of cool, but it also does just look like he's wearing a jacket. So I'm not sure is this his final costume, or is he still early on in his career, so he's just wearing a jacket? Because if we look at some other pictures as well, so there's another look at him. There's another look at him. I'm trying to look at his shoes. But yeah, this is actually him from the front. By the way, yes, he does have a T on his face because it's Mr. Terrific. I don't really know anything about this character, but I know that much. There's another look at Superman's suit. Yeah, if you look at his shoes there, I don't know, it just looks like he's wearing a regular outfit. But yeah, I will say I love the way that the cape looks from the back. That looks awesome. And then here's also a video of Superman. This is the first video footage that we have of David Cornsweet as Superman. Can you believe it? But yeah, then we also have a picture of Clark Kent. I have to say, I think this looks really good as well. It's one of those things where it's you can actually see because obviously one of the big Superman criticisms is the whole thing of how do you not know that Clark is Superman, blah 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 blah. But this kind of looks kind of believable. You give him the zoomer haircut, you know what I mean? It's that's not this guy. Look how well look how well done his hair is. It's not him. What do you mean? He has glasses. It can't possibly be him. And I'm sure the performance is also going to add to it. So I don't know. I think the little Clark look looks really good as well. Here we have pictures of Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor. He looks like he was in a bit of a scrap. But yeah, look at that bald head. Look at that shiny head. looks pretty good, I guess. And then here you have Lois Lane. Here you have the actress, not really in role. It looks like she's this is like when she's not acting. It's just a picture of her. But okay, so I will say we're gonna look at more pictures of Lois, like actually like in a scene. But I will say they're a little spoilery. Like we can actually like deduce what the scene is. So all the pictures from now on are gonna be spoilery. They're gonna depict specific scenes. So if you don't want to know, which honestly I didn't want to know, but I saw the pictures, so fuck me. But so I'm gonna cover it. But like, yeah, just want to let you know that. All right, are you done? Is everybody gone that doesn't want to be here? All right, so here's Lois and Perry getting out of a plane. It looks like at some point in the movie that they're going to be in a plane that crashes down. That kind of appears to be the case. But I gotta say, Rachel Brosnahan looks kind of great. It looks kind of perfect as Lois Lane. And there's Perry White as well. He has a cigar in his mouth. She looks freaking phenomenal. I have to say, man, she looks really good as Lois Lane. Then we have them like this is our first little image there of Lois and Clark together. So that looks super cute. This looks so good, dude. Lois and Clark. Dude, this looks so good. Man, especially because I'm watching My Adventures with Superman right now, and I need these two to have amazing chemistry. I don't want just okay chemistry. They need to have amazing chemistry. Man, like they just look so good together, honestly. Like, and I don't want to hate too much on the whole on Amy Adams, but like I just never cared about Lois Lane in the Snyder movies. I just never did. So I don't know. And it's like, I'm sure part of that has to do with Zack Snyder's direction. I don't want to necessarily just blame Amy Adams, but I just thought she was so boring. And I just know, like, I've mostly seen Rachel Brosnahan in The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, but she is phenomenal in that show. And when I remember when I heard that she was in the running for Lois Lane, I was like, yes. Absolutely yes. Just absolutely. And I just have a feeling that she's going to crush this. And these two need to have chemistry. Like, we need Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone level chemistry between these two. Unironically, I think it is like the most important thing for the movie. It's for them to have amazing chemistry. You know what I mean? But yeah, I accidentally went on to the next picture. But yes, then here's also a picture of apparently Superman getting arrested at some point in the movie. And as you can see there, on the left-hand side, that is Frank Grillo as Rick Flag Sr. So if you don't know, we're apparently going to get Rick Flag Sr. in Creature Commandos. Rick Flag Sr., so this is Rick Flag's dad from Rick Flag, of course, from the Suicide Squad movies. And this is, of course, just a weird thing that we'll have to see how it plays out. But, of course, in the Suicide Squad, Rick Flag gets killed by Peacemaker. Apparently, Rick Flag Sr. is, like, that character's dad. Like, that specific character's dad. And apparently that's going to play a part in Peacemaker Season 2. But the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker were set in the DCEU, but Peacemaker Season 2 is apparently going to be in the new DCU, and we're going to have to see how they explain that. It's very confusing, but, I mean, this is just like a very clear sign that they are interconnecting this universe right from the start, because we're going to get Creature Commandos later this year, and Rick Flag Sr. is going to roll right into Superman. So it's like what James Gunn said at the start, where how like their actors were going to be playing these roles in animation and then transition into live action. I mean, that's seeming to be the case here. Now, the guy behind Superman is apparently Ultraman, who is apparently in the comics as like a clone of Superman, I think. Hold on, let me Google that again. I kind of forgot what information I Googled. Okay, this is what Google says. It says, Ultraman is the name of several supervillains appearing in stories published by DC Comics. The characters are all evil or corrupted alternate universe counterparts of Superman. Wow, interesting. So it's unclear as to who exactly that is. I wonder if that's why he has a U on his chest. I don't know if that might be a little cheeky. Although to be fair, Superman has a big S on his chest, so who am I to judge? I guess. But I've also seen people speculate that it might be Midnighter, who is a member of the Authority, and the Authority is getting a movie in the DC universe, so that would kind of make sense. And by the way, the girl next to them is the Engineer, who again is a character from the Authority, and that's the actress who's playing her. We know that we know for a fact that she's going to be in the movie. And we know that the Authority is getting a movie, so it would make sense for them to get introduced here. So we'll have to see how this all plays out. But yeah, this is definitely like a thing that I just don't want to see this. But I saw it. It was just like I was assaulted with it on Twitter, right? Where it's like, oh look, Superman's getting arrested, and it's like, okay, I didn't need to know that. But I don't know. Hopefully it was always going to be in like a trailer, and we were going to know about this anyways. So anyways, those are all the pictures. Definitely interesting to look at, even if it is kind of spoilery, but who cares, I guess. All right, next story. Kite Man, hell yeah, has a release date. So this is coming from comicbook.com. Kite Man, hell yeah, has a release date on Max after a recent promotional reel hit social media. Fans of the Harley Quinn character can look forward to the new show on July 18th. That is coming out surprisingly soon. Yeah, July 18th is kind of around the corner. Like, that's like next month. It is next month, but it's less than a month away. So, yeah, I'm actually pretty excited about Kite Man. Like, the Harley Quinn show, I really like, especially the first two seasons, I think are phenomenal. It's kind of lost its way over the past two seasons. I personally still think it's enjoyable, but it for sure has been kind of spinning its wheels a bit, and I feel like it's kind of the show has lost its voice in the sense that it just doesn't really know what stories to tell anymore. At least that's what it feels like. So, hopefully the next season is able to hit its stride again. But I do hope that with Kite Man, the creators, I don't know, I assume it's the same people working on the shows, but hopefully they're able to just like strike a well of inspiration. You know what I mean? And Kite Man is able to be like super fresh, like Harley Quinn originally was. Sorry, I had to center myself. It was annoying me. But yeah, I'm excited for Kite Man. All right, next story. Apparently, Krennic is going to be back for Andor Season 2. Everybody's favorite character. This is coming from the playlist. Last week, we talked to Mexican filmmaker Alonso Ruiz Palacios. He said directing episodes of the series was a treat, especially directing heavyweight actors like Stellan Skarsgård, Forrest Whitaker, and Ben Mendelsohn, presumably not realizing he was revealing something of a spoiler. Sorry to blow up your spot. Ooh, dang, that's crazy. So yeah, one of the directors just flat out said that Orson Krennic is going to come back to Andor. Of course, he was in Rogue One, so makes sense that he'd be in this because this movie is leading up to Rogue One. If I remember correctly, he was like the general, and Jyn Erso's dad was like making the Death Star, and Jyn Erso's dad like left the Empire or something because he was like, we probably shouldn't build the Death Star. That's an allegory for the atomic bomb. So I am the Oppenheimer of the story. And then they like tracked him down or something, and they killed Jyn Erso's dad in front of her. I think, is that what happened in Rogue One? I don't remember. But either way, I assume that we're gonna see, Krennic and Jyn Erso's dad, I would assume, is going to be back in the story, and we're going to kind of see that whole plot develop a bit, which should be interesting. It's interesting stuff. You know what I mean? Oppenheimer references, based in Epic. Okay, next story. I don't have anything else to say. Lanterns has got a series order. I'm sorry for yelling. My apologies. It's coming from Deadline. Lanterns is moving from Max to HBO and has received an official series order. The redeveloped adaptation of the Green Lantern comic comes from Chris Mundy, Damon Lindelof, and Tom King. It is part of a new strategy to move expensive scripted series from the streaming service to the linear network that also includes big-budget series such as Harry Potter and It prequel Welcome to Derry. Obviously, all of these shows will subsequently air on the streaming service. Lanterns follows new recruit Jon Stewart and Lantern legend Hal Jordan, two intergalactic cops drawn into a dark, Earth-based mystery as they investigate a murder in the American heartland. So there are actually a lot of there are a lot of interesting things to talk about here. So obviously, great that Lanterns has got like a full series order. It seems like they're not gonna shoot a pilot and then see whether or not the show's gonna get a greenlit. Like they're just gonna make the show, which I think makes sense. Like if considering James Gunn is the head of DC Studios, I assume that he has the authority to just be like, yeah, I mean, we're making the show. You know what I mean? Although I guess in some senses that might end up being a bad thing because that's kind of that is kind of what has led to the downfall of the MCU in a sense, is that they don't make pilots. Like they just make their shows and then they're like, yeah, we're gonna make it even if it's bad. You know, I mean, we don't have to get into the whole MCU problem, but I assume that that's not gonna be the case with the DCU. At least I hope. But yeah, I'm super excited for the show. I love the idea of True Detective with two Green Lanterns. Like, that's how James Gunn pitched it, and that sounds really cool. I like the talent involved. You know what I mean? And yeah, it's interesting that it's now going to air on, like, HBO on cable, as well as being put on Max. And this actually kind of, I think, leans into the fact that Warner Brothers Discovery is trying to preserve the HBO branding. Because here's the thing. If you remember way back when, Max used to be called HBO Max. And I remember when they decided to take off the HBO out of the streaming service's name, and everybody was clowning on them for it. But I actually completely understand that decision. Because, yes, HBO is like the most prestigious brand in TV. Right, HBO carries a lot of weight, but I would argue that HBO Max was actually damaging that HBO brand, because you weren't just now associating the HBO branding with stuff like The Sopranos and True Detective. True Detective was on HBO, right? I think it was. Anyways, and like Game of Thrones, you were also associating it with stuff like Velma, you know, and whatever other random terrible like other like reality TV shows and stuff like that. Like that was all that stuff was being associated with the HBO branding. I think it makes a lot of sense to take off the HBO name off of HBO Max. I mean, you could have called it better than Max, to be clear, but then just have HBO as a category within Max, and then still have HBO, like the TV channel, have its own like prestigious branding, and have shows that are airing on HBO, right, on the TV channel. Like these are HBO shows, and then these high quality HBO level shows are on Max as well. Because this strategy, I think, is going to keep the prestigious branding of HBO, and having like HBO shows on Max actually mean something. Because it was the case on it with it's been the case with Max, where it's like, okay, like sure, like, you know, The Penguin is going to be on Max. Is this an HBO show? Like, is this actually an HBO level show, or is this just like a random show that some other entity of Warner Brothers Discovery is making? You know? And I think the reason why the Penguin isn't being moved over to HBO is probably just because it's too late. Like they've already put out trailers saying that it's going to be a Max show. But I assume that if the Penguin wasn't coming out later this year, they probably would have moved that onto HBO as well. But as it stands right now, the Penguin, it's like, is it an HBO level show? Is that what we should expect from it? Or should we expect, the same level of quality as Velma or Total Drama Island, which is also on Max? So I don't know. I actually think that this strategy makes a lot of sense because the prestige of HBO remains. HBO is a prestigious brand, and on Max, right, on this Warner Brothers streaming service, you can watch HBO shows, and you will know that those specific shows are HBO, and an HBO show still means something. So does that make sense? I don't know. I feel like I'm the only one that understands their decision making on that one. All right. Next up, we also got a showrunner for the Harold Potterman show. So this is coming from Hollywood Reporter. The series is named Francesca Gardiner as its writer and showrunner and tapped Mark Mylod to direct multiple episodes. Both are Emmy winners for HBO's Succession. Gardiner as part of the show's producing team and Mylod as both director and producer. Gardiner's credits as a writer and producer also include his Dark Materials at HBO, Killing Eve at BBC America, and The Rook at Starz. Mylod has directed episodes of Game of Thrones and the upcoming second season of The Last of Us for HBO, as well as feature film The Menu and Showtime's Shameless and The Affair, among others. So, I mean, yeah, it seems like they have some pretty heavy hitter talent coming in to make this Harry Potter reboot. Like as I mentioned before, it's being put on HBO. So this is actually an HBO show. It's not, a Max show. It's not an HBO Max show. It is a prestigious HBO show. They're getting talent from Succession and from other stuff to work on it. So I think it's fair to have pretty high hopes for this Harry Potter show, like pretty high expectations. I'm not really a Harry Potter guy. I watched like the first movie, I think. Don't really remember much about it, to be honest with you. So at some point I do need to sit down and, binge all the Harry Potter movies. So yeah, I don't know, maybe I should just not do that and just watch the show. Come into it as a bit of a fresh perspective or something. I don't know. Maybe that would be interesting. I did that with The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, because I've also never really seen the Lord of the Rings. And I was like, this is fine. When I watched the show, while everybody else is like, this is the worst thing ever. Just because I didn't have any expectations for it, you know what I mean? But anyways, we'll see what happens. It is very possible that I just organically don't watch Harry Potter before the show comes out, and it's not even like an active decision that I make. But we'll see. All right, next up, we have some more fantastic details, or really just stuff that's been confirmed. It's coming from CBR. Speaking on the official Marvel podcast, Kevin Feige confirmed the Fantastic Four reboot film will begin production in July. According to the Marvel boss, the Fantastic Four starts principal photography the day after San Diego Comic-Con, which concludes on July 28th. We start shooting at the end of July, Feige said. The day after Comic-Con International San Diego is the first day of filming on Fantastic Four. Speaking on the official Marvel podcast, Feige confirmed the Fantastic Four reboot film will be... Oh, what the hell? Oh no, I'm sorry. I completely messed up the graphic here. Wow, my apologies. Okay, sorry. So I didn't write it down there, but basically, yes, he confirmed that it's going to start filming in July. But he also confirmed something that a lot of us have been suspecting, which is that, based on the artwork, yes, this is going to be somewhat of a period piece film. that the timeline of this movie is going to be very much 60s inspired, which I think is very interesting. Now, the reason why I'm not necessarily explicitly saying it's a period piece film is that he also hinted that he also essentially said in the podcast that the movie is going to take place in like a different universe. So if we look back at this picture, let me move it up a bit. If you see the city in the background there, that doesn't really look like New York City, right? I remember I talked about it I did a story on this, how, dude, I think the Fantastic Four movie might end up taking place in like a different universe or something. And he very much hinted at that. Like he was like, very aware fans may have looked at our initial image and see that the skyline does not look like how New York City looked like in the 60s. Like he said that in the podcast. I'm sorry that I just completely fucked up the graphic there. But yeah, so this is actually very interesting. It is actually funny though that for years we've been like, Marvel, can you just buy the X-Men properties? We want to see the Fantastic Four and the X-Men in the MCU. And Marvel is like, we got you guys. We bought Fox, so now we own all those properties again. Oh, great. So the Fantastic Four is going to be in the MCU? No. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm sure that they're going to fall in a portal at some point and land in the MCU. But it is very funny that the first Fantastic Four movie is just not going to be set in the MCU. Or, I mean, it'll be set in the MCU in a multiverse capacity, but you know what I mean. That would be, but honestly, that would just be hilarious. That would just be very funny if Marvel just made the Fantastic Four and the X-Men in their own separate universe, just like Fox had to do. That would just be funny. But honestly, I wouldn't even be mad if they did that, just because it is kind of a headache thinking about how exactly do you introduce the X-Men into the MCU without like completely changing the lore of the X-Men. Like that is going to be a challenge, and we still have to wait and see exactly how they'll do that. So we'll see. But yeah, honestly, like a futuristic 60s, Fantastic Four movie, that sounds very cool. So we'll see exactly how it ends up being executed. All right, next story, kind of hinted at it there in the last story, but Comic-Con, Marvel is officially coming to Comic-Con. This is coming from Deadline. Following a sleepy San Diego Comic-Con last summer due to the actors' strike, this year's confab is about to explode with the return of Marvel Studios to Hall H per sources. Comic-Con runs from July 25th to July 28th. So I think this is good news. Comic-Con is always a fun time for superhero stuff. I feel like it used to be bigger than it is recently, and I think a lot of that probably has to do with like Marvel and DC kind of doing their own thing, where like Disney also has D23, and DC, although I haven't done it in a minute, DC had that DC fandom thing, and it kind of also feel like just for other reasons as well. Like, I don't know, I feel like in like 2015, 2016, like Comic-Con used to be like this massive thing where like a bunch of massive trailers would drop, and in recent years it just hasn't felt like that. Like, I don't know if it's also just a thing of studios just deciding that they just don't really need to do that necessarily. But I don't know. Hopefully we get some more of that energy back this year, although I'm trying to remember, I think DC said that they're not going to be there. Or at the very least, I remember reporting that James Gunn isn't going to be at Comic-Con because he's going to be filming Superman. But maybe DC will still be there showing other things. But anyways, Marvel will be there. Like we reported in the last story, Fantastic Four is going to be shooting is going to start shooting a couple days after. So I have to assume that the Fantastic Four the cast will probably be there. I wouldn't be surprised if they show up in costume. I don't know. I feel like that's probably going to happen. I think that'll be a big pop. the Comic-Con is also happening the same weekend as Deadpool and Wolverine. So I think we'll almost certainly see Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman there. So I think that'll be a lot of fun. And then as far as like what news they'll drop, I mean, I think we'll definitely get trailers for Thunderbolts and Captain America: Brave New World. I think that's almost a guarantee. I think they'll definitely talk about Agatha: House of Harkness because that's coming out later this September. I wouldn't be surprised if we also maybe got a trailer for Daredevil: Born Again. I feel like that's also a possibility. And then it'll be interesting. I think it would be cool if they maybe confirmed that Shang-Chi 2 is happening, if they confirmed that Destin Daniel Crennic is coming back for that. I think it would be cool if they confirmed if, Kang is going to be recast or not. Maybe give a new title for Avengers, like the Kang Dynasty. Like, what is that new title going to be for Avengers 5? Maybe confirm a director for Avengers 5. I think that would be neat as well. But yeah, it'll just be interesting. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that they can talk about. Oh, you know what we'll probably also see? I think we might also see Spider-Man. What did they change the title to? Did they change it to Freshman Year or My Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man? It was originally called one of those two things. And now it's called something else. So I wouldn't be surprised if they dropped a trailer for that. But, I mean, I don't know. Like, do they talk about Blade? I don't even know, bro. Oh, my God. Like, that movie is just such a disaster. It's like, it would be ballsy, right? Like, if they talked about Blade, like, do they have the balls to bring out Mahershala Ali? Like, I feel like if they talk about Blade at all, I feel like they have to apologize. And maybe it would be smart to bring out Mahershala Ali and quell the fears that he's quitting the movie. Have him come out and be like, "Hey, we have a director. I'm Mahershala Ali. I'm not leaving the movie. I like the direction that it's going in." I feel like that actually might be a good move. I think I know Disney has a couple other animated series that are coming out, like Eyes of Wakanda. Maybe we see something from that. What If season 3? They're also just we'll talk about Wonder Man later. Maybe we see something from Wonder Man because I think that's been filming as well. Ironheart is a show that's allegedly done. So I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that they can talk about and a lot of stuff that they can show. So we'll just have to wait and see. But hopefully it's a big pop. You know what I mean? All right. Next up, Ryan Reynolds kind of teased an Avengers thing. So this is a picture from his Instagram. He posted a video of an Avengers flag flapping with Deadpool, or not Deadpool, but with an Anarchy A written over it. So he is directly teasing that Deadpool is going to be involved with the Avengers in some capacity. I mean, I feel like that's kind of a given to a certain extent, right? At least in Avengers Secret Wars, literally everybody is going to be in that movie. So you have to assume that, yes, Ryan Reynolds will be back for at least Avengers Secret Wars. Is he going to be back for Avengers 5, though? I'm not sure, because the thing about Deadpool is he's obviously, right now, considering Iron Man and Captain America are off the field, Deadpool might be their most popular character. If you really think about it, I think Deadpool might actually be their most popular character. Obviously Wolverine is more iconic, but I don't know if you can really count Hugh Jackman as Wolverine because he's not going to be the main Wolverine in the MCU. It's going to be some new guy. Yeah, if you really think about it, Deadpool, I think, is their most popular character. That's crazy. But even with that, it's is he really a good fit for the Avengers? To be a core part of the Avengers? I don't necessarily think so. And I do worry that if you put Deadpool in an Avengers movie, I do feel like that you run the risk of either Deadpool taking away from the gravity of the Avengers or the gravity of the Avengers taking away from Deadpool's like wacky zaniness. So I think that's interesting. But at the end of the day, money does talk, and they're going to figure out whatever way they have to to put Deadpool in the Avengers, or at least in an Avengers movie. So we'll see how they handle that. All right, next up. Kevin Feige confirmed that Wonder Man is alive. This is coming from TV Line. Feige said, "We have a show coming up that we've talked very little about called Wonder Man that I won't talk much about today either, except to say it's extremely different than anything we've done before." So, whatever, like, oh wow, guy who makes an MCU project says, this is so much different than all the other MCU movies. We've heard this before. Sometimes it turns out to be true, sometimes it doesn't turn out to be true. But I'm just mostly reporting that the show isn't dead. If you'll remember, we talked a few months ago about how they talked about how they were going to start reducing the amount of content that they put out. And I was of the opinion, I was like, okay, some of this stuff is getting canceled. I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if Agatha all along gets canceled. I wouldn't be surprised if Wonder Man gets canceled. Wouldn't be surprised if Ironheart gets canceled, because I do think that Marvel is at the point where if something isn't good, you probably just shouldn't release it. I do think that Marvel is at that point. So I was like, listen, I could very well see Wonder Man just being put on the chopping block, but they're saying it's coming out, so it's like, okay, if you say so. But yeah, I don't know anything about Wonder Man. I'm not really sure what to expect from the show, so we'll just have to see what happens with it. All right, next up, let's talk about my favorite thing to talk about, which is modern day movie budgets. Hell yes, Captain America 4. We have an updated budget. So this is coming from World of Real. Brave New World already had a budget of $275 million before reshoots began. Now, a contact deeply embedded in the current Brave New World reshoots is telling me that these reshoots are said to cost Disney/Marvel anywhere between $75 to $100 million. They tell me it's like they're shooting a brand new movie. So, we've already been very suspicious of Captain America Brave New World. We do be looking at all of the reshoots, and we're going, goddamn, that looks like a bit of a disaster. And I will say our fears were a little bit quelled, because there was a Hollywood Reporter article around a month ago that said that actually these reshoots are not as serious as people had previously reported, and that the budget of Captain America Brave New World was going to be cost significantly less than something like the Marvels, which also had reshoots that made the budget balloon to a ridiculous number. So I will say this is kind of contradicting that Hollywood Reporter article, although I reread that article this morning, and the way the Hollywood Reporter article words it is they say it's expected for the reshoots of Captain America Brave New World to not be that costly. Now World of Real is saying that actually no, they were very costly. So there's no way this movie makes its budget back. I mean, just straight up. That is an insane budget. And I do think that this is going to end up being somewhat of a Furiosa situation where you're making a Captain America movie with a guy who's not Chris Evans, who's a character who's not Steve Rogers. And by the way, I'm not even one of these people that's like, Captain America is Steve Rogers. This side character isn't Captain America. Pfft, I don't care about that, right? I'm perfectly fine with a Sam Wilson Captain America movie. I'm just saying that I think that for general audiences, it might be a bit of a tougher sell because they know Chris Evans as Captain America. We saw with Furiosa that clearly there were a lot of people that, were not all that interested in watching a Mad Max movie without Mad Max in it. And if you look, and again, a lot like Mad Max movies, there weren't a ton of people that were interested in Mad Max in general. Where it's like, that franchise has never been a massive moneymaker. And when you look at Captain America, his solo movies have never been massive either. Like, Captain America, the First Avenger, I think only made in like the $300 million range, right? Like, it made like $300-something million. Captain America Winter Soldier, post-Avengers, made a good amount of money, right? It made like $700 million. So that's great. But then when you look at Captain America Civil War, yes, that movie made over $1 billion, but it was basically Avengers 2.5, right? So when you're looking at a Captain America movie that Captain America on his own has only ever made like $700 million. Captain America without Steve Rogers as Captain America, it's probably not going to make as much money. And when you have a budget of $375 million, you're like at a point where you need like $800-900 million, possibly $1 billion just to break even. I have to wonder if part of the reason why they're spending so much money to do reshoots is just because Marvel is at a point where they have to do like reputation repair, right? Like, I wonder if part of their calculus is like, hey, this movie is we're not going to make our money back on this movie, but it is more important for us to put out a great movie than it is to make money on it. Because I kind of agree with that. Like, you know, something like The Marvels. I watched that movie and I was like, and I said this in my review, I was like, Marvel should not have released this movie. Like, this movie is kind of a disaster for them as far as reputation is concerned, because it was that bad, at least in my opinion. And if their strategy here is, listen, we're gonna way overspend on Captain America 4, but this Sam Wilson as Captain America, we want him to be a cornerstone of the MCU. We want him to be a major player in the franchise. Even if we lose money on this movie, making sure that it is a great film will ultimately make it worth it. Maybe that's the mindset that they have. So if that's the mindset and they're okay with eating it a little bit, then I can justify this. If they're delusional and they actually think a Captain America movie without Captain America can make like $1 billion, then yeah, they're in for a bumpy ride. But yeah, we'll see. All right, next up. It looks like the Batman is actually going to show up in The Penguin. So this is a video. Let's play it.
Dallas says, Jeff, how sure are you that Pattinson shows up in The Penguin? Do you think he'll show up in The Penguin series as Batman or Bruce Wayne?
That's been confirmed.
Okay.
Definitely needed an appearance.
So that was from the Hot Mic podcast. That was John Roca asking Jeff Schneider. You know, Jeff Schneider is one of these industry insiders that he's like a very well-respected reporter that gets a lot of scoops right. I generally trust him. So him saying that it's basically been confirmed that he'll make an appearance, that basically makes me feel pretty assured that Robert Pattinson is going to show up in the Batman or in the Penguin. As far as like to what extent and what he'll do, I think he'll probably be... I think he'll only be in like 1 or 2 episodes. I don't think he's going to have a massive role. That being said, I do think we'll see him in the full-on Batman suit. Like, I think it's probably important that you either show Batman like messing up one of the Penguin's plans, some of the Penguin's plans at the beginning of the show to establish like a downtrodden Penguin that then has to like rise up and join and like rise to power within the ranks of Gotham's crime family or whatever the fuck. I think you have Batman in the beginning to trounce Penguin and set up a character that has to rise, right? Or you have the Penguin rise to power, and then at the end of the show, you show the Penguin getting a one-up on Batman, right? Like, you show Penguin, defeating Batman in some way or tricking Batman in some way. And that's how you, like, really establish that, hey, the Penguin Oz that we've that we've seen rise to power throughout this entire show, he got the one up on Batman. I think we're either going to see him in the beginning or at the end or both, but I don't think we're going to see too much of him throughout the series, if at all. I guess it is also possible that we see, like, Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne in the show. Because obviously, actually, I'm trying to remember. I don't know if it was established in the Batman itself, but generally speaking, in Batman media, Oswald Cobblepot does hate Bruce Wayne because of, like, familial reasons or whatever. So maybe they explore some of that as well. I mean, that's also possible, but for sure, I think what I established at the beginning, I feel like you kind of got to do that. So we'll see though. I could be completely wrong. All right, next up, we got some details for Agatha All Along. This is coming from Empire. Agatha All Along will see Harkness joined by a disparate mixed bag of witches. Witches are defined by deception, treachery, villainy, and selfishness. What do you do when you have a group of witches who demonstrate those notions and you need them to work together? A whole bunch of chaos magic, you'd expect. Where WandaVision played with the form of classic TV sitcoms, here we do a lot of playing with what the assumptions about witches are. Schaefer explains. Like, what are the shorthand visuals for witches? But expect too to find some of the emotion that permeated WandaVision. We certainly didn't want a one-dimensional nasty witch, says Schaefer. We will have moments where we see Agatha's true heart. Maybe it won't be entirely pitch black after all. So, some interesting stuff there, I guess. So it seems like Agatha is going to be making, like, a little coven of witches. A coven made up of covenless witches. Seems like that's going to be kind of a thing that we're playing here with. It seems to be cannon fodder for, like, the anti-woke people, because you have a coven of witches in the Acolyte, and a bunch of people are like, lesbian witches in Star Wars, what? I wonder if we're gonna see, like, the same, like, complaint about Agatha. It's like, lesbian witches in the MCU. Even though, like, in the Acolyte, it's technically not confirmed that they're lesbian witches, and people are just kind of saying that. Although, I don't want to be disingenuous. It is kind of... there is some romantic tension between the Darth Maul lady and the mama character. But, just to be clear, it's not established as a lesbian witch cult. Anyways, I just thought about that whole, like, stupid controversy when I was reading this, but yeah, I'm not gonna be honest. I have no idea what they mean when they're like, how WandaVision had the whole sitcom gimmick. Well, get ready for Agatha All Along, because every episode there's gonna be a new assumption about witches that's gonna get subverted. I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, how many? What are the assumptions that people have of witches that you're gonna, like, use each episode the way that you use different sitcom eras in WandaVision? Like, I don't know how these two are gonna end up correlating, but I will say this: there's a lot of apathy and straight up negativity towards this show. I don't really, or I guess I understand why, but I just want to point out that I was there in 2020. I remember how much you all loved the character of Agatha. I remember how much you all loved Catherine Hahn's performance. I'm like, listen, was I ever asking for an Agatha Harkness show? Absolutely not. But But like, I'm definitely gonna watch it. Like, I do think I could very easily see it being good, just because Catherine Hahn is an incredible performer. Agatha was a very fun character, so I just want to point that out. I'm like, I know you all like this character. I was there. I saw it. So we'll see how it ends up. Oh, by the way, we also have a picture. I guess they're like opening up a door or something. Actually, is this the same basement from WandaVision, from Agatha's house? I feel like it might be. Also interesting to point out. Well, sorry. I was speculating if maybe one of her witch friends ends up like releasing her from the trance that Wanda put her in. But yeah, it seems like these are going to be some of the other witch characters. So I don't know. Listen, I'm not saying this show's going to be good. It very easily could end up being terrible. But I'm just not as negative as other people. You know what I mean? We'll see though. All right, so that was the last story of the day. Now let's get into what I've been watching. I watched the Doctor Who finale. I liked this season overall. So just to be clear, this is my first season of Doctor Who. Never watched the David Tennant one. Never watched the one with the guy from Morbius. Never watched the one with the old man. Never watched the one with the woman. Doctor Who went woke. This is my first one. And I liked it. You know, I like Nkudi Gawa. I think he's very charming in this role. I like the character of the Doctor. I liked his relationship with the girl, Ruby Sunday. I liked her. I will say though, as you get to the season finale here, I don't know if I was necessarily ultimately, or I guess I'll say this. I found the whole thing to be a little confusing, you know? Like, there's this, like, weird, like, god character that's introduced, and it feels like this is a character that was introduced in previous seasons. Like, it very much feels that way. And it felt like it was kind of like, yep, you should know who this is, because you've obviously watched the past seasons of Doctor Who. You're not some moron that just jumped on the bandwagon this season. And so I will say that it did kind of take away from me. And there's also like this other side character who I suspect is one of the old Doctor Who companions, because there's this older lady in the episode that kind of tags along with the Doctor and Ruby. And it's kind of, I think people are supposed to be like, it's the girl, it's one of the Doctor's companions from one of the old shows. Oh my gosh, she's here. And I just didn't have that reaction. To me, it was just like, oh, there's some random lady that's tagging along with us. So I don't know. I felt like as a newcomer, this episode felt very reliant on you having watched Doctor Who in the past. So I do have those complaints about it, but overall, I enjoyed the show. I thought that the cast was very charming. I liked Ruby Tuesday. And yeah, I like the show. So I don't know if I necessarily love it, you know. And I know Doctor Who fans have all of their fucking criticisms, and that's fine. You know, I respect you and your what you think Doctor Who should or shouldn't be. Like I understand they have their opinions. But just as a newcomer that came in, I enjoyed the show. So there's that. I also watched My Adventures with Superman episode 6. I love the show, man. I really do. So in this episode, we really get to establish Clark and Kara's relationship, and it was so adorable. Like seeing like Kara sort of like really warm up to humanity. We saw that she had kept the picture with her and Jimmy, and like I really love seeing like Clark and Kara, like their cousin dynamic was on full display here, and it was like this show is just, it does such a good job at just making you fall in love with relationships. And it's like immediately, like immediately as soon as like Kara and Clark starts teasing Kara and like holding up the picture and her like trying to grab it, like a little cousin. It's just so fucking adorable, dude. So I thought that was very cute. I like that they're kind of I like everything that they're doing with the Kryptonian alien like plotting to take over Earth, and the fact that they set up Krypton as this like conquering race. I'm pretty sure that's different from most iterations of Superman, but I don't know. I think it's fine that they're making that change. I think it makes the stakes different, because it's usually like Zod just wanting to take over Earth, but this is more so Clark having to confront what Krypton actually was. You know what I mean? Although actually, hold on, wasn't necessarily that Krypton conquered planets, or was it more so that the robot is conquering planets? Actually, I feel like it might be the latter. I might be misremembering. Sorry, but either way, I think it's a neat thing. Does it kind of feel a little Invincible-ish? It does, but if you'll remember, Invincible stole that from Dragon Ball Z. So put your pitchforks away. But yeah, either way, I think it's a great show. All right. Next up, I watched House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 2. This was another very solid episode of House of the Dragon. I like all the politicalness of it all. I like seeing the fallout of the baby death from Episode 1. Seeing everybody, like, I thought it was very compelling seeing everybody grappling with it, like seeing Rhaenyra's side being like, bitch, I think you killed that baby. And then like you move on to like the King's Landing side or whatever. What is it? I think it's like Rhaenyra's side is Team Black, and then the other side is Team Green, right? I think that's what the fandom calls it. And then like Team Green is having to deal with this like incompetent prince that is just like super angry and whatnot. And I don't know. I find let me see, how do I put this? Game of Thrones felt like this big, epic, sprawling show. I like that House of the Dragon feels a little more personal, Like, Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon so far really does feel like it's not really a big, sprawling show. This is really a show about, like, a family and like a friend group. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I like that. A lot of most of the plot this season has been, hey, we killed each other's like family members. You know what I mean? I kind of like that. And yeah, overall, I think the show is great so far. Hopefully it continues its streak. All right, next up, I watched The Acolyte episode 5. Yeah, so my main complaint of the last episode was that it felt like the episode just ended, because Disney Plus makes episodes that are like way too short. And yeah, this episode felt like the second half of last week's episode. And because of that, I enjoyed it, So we have some pretty, listen, say what you will about the Acolyte, we got some pretty sick-ass lightsaber fights here. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna anger some people potentially, but I'm actually not the biggest fan of the lightsaber fights in the prequels, and that's mostly just because when you're watching the lightsaber fights in the prequels, to me it just feels way too choreographed. Like, I feel like I'm watching a ballet dance rather than watching people trying to kill each other. What I appreciate about the lightsaber fights here is that you really do feel like people are just trying to fucking kill each other. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Say what you will about the show. I think like the lightsaber fights were cool. We finally get revealed who the Sith is, and it's like, is it kind of predictable? Sure, but I don't think that makes it bad necessarily. And I will say, Ezra Miller, pretty good. No, it's not actually Ezra Miller, but it looks like Ezra Miller. He was pretty great in this episode. Surprisingly buff. You know what I mean? I didn't expect him to have those guns. I wasn't expecting that. It's like, damn, bro, you're like kind of massive. I will say some weird setup where it's like at the end of last episode, it's like all the Jedi are together, but then you get into this episode, and then like the Sith guy, or maybe not Sith guy, I don't know. By the way, actually, I will touch on that. One of the big controversies about the Acolyte is that it's seemingly breaking Star Wars canon because there wasn't supposed to be Sith before the prequel era or something. Or at the very least, the Jedi wasn't supposed to know about the Sith. But if we have this Sith guy here, then that kind of breaks canon because, well, the Jedi saw this guy. So one of the big questions has been, well, maybe this guy is just going to kill all the Jedi before they can report to the Jedi Council. And so that doesn't break canon. But then the other thing that I've been positing is that, well, maybe this Sith guy isn't actually a Sith. Maybe he's just some guy, right? Because, I mean, Star Wars has done this in the past, you know, with the Inquisitors. They're fucking Sith, but they're like, well, we're not going to break the rule of two, so they're not Sith, they are Inquisitors. You know what I mean? And that could be what they're angling at here. They're like, hey, he's not a Sith, he's a... I know some people have been saying that he's part of the Knights of Ren. I don't even really know what the Knights of Ren are, quite frankly. But maybe he's one of those guys, or maybe he's something new entirely. So in this episode, Soul asks him, "Who are you?" And he says, "You people might call me a Sith Lord," or something like that. And the interesting part that I've heard people talking about this, he technically doesn't say that he is a Sith. He says, "You people might call me a Sith." But maybe he's like, the full sentence would be, "You people might call me a Sith, but I'm actually not a Sith." Like, so, I don't know. I guess, to be fair, he definitely hints that he's a Sith, right? But technically not confirmed yet. So we'll see. And we still have to see. Maybe he is a Sith, but maybe he just kills everybody. They can't report back to the Senate or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. The lightsaber fights were cool. They kill off a lot of main characters, which is pretty, you know, I like it when shows have stakes. You know, I appreciate that. But yeah, for sure, definitely other stuff that you can criticize, like I didn't mention this in my original review, but when people pointed it out, I was like, no, oh yeah, that's definitely a fault of the episode. Like May's whole character turn, where in the last episode she was like, "I don't want to kill the Jedi. Actually, I have my sister now." And then in this episode, she's just like, wants to murder fucking Jackie or whatever, and she like goes back to the Sith guy, or maybe not the Sith guy, but you know, May's character does seem a little uneven here. You know, is it maybe kind of weird that Soul just like believed that May was Osha? I guess so. Like maybe as a Jedi, should he be able to sense like the darkness within her? I guess so. Although maybe they're commenting on Osha having darkness within her because there was probably a reason why she wasn't a Jedi. You know what I mean? Maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's gonna be part of it. I don't know. But yeah, I listen. When it comes to the Acolyte, it's a very contentious show. I understand a lot of the criticisms with it. I really do. I just find myself casually enjoying it. I don't think it's great. You know, like, it ain't no Andor. You know what I'm saying? But what I'm also saying is, it's definitely not a Book of Boba Fett. It's just not. Like, people acting like it's like the worst thing in Star Wars. It's like, Star Wars has produced far worse. That doesn't necessarily mean it's good. I'm just saying it's not the worst. But anyways, you can have that perspective if you wish. Okay, next episode, or next thing. I watched The Boys Season 4, Episode 5. This was another very solid episode. You know, we get some more like connections with Gen V. We see some Gen V characters. We see them like directly dealing with the virus, which I think is very interesting. We see Butcher kind of you know, to some extent, he's there. There's some stuff there with like Jeffrey D. Morgan being like, oh, "You're going soft, Butcher." But then by the end of the episode, it's like, "Oh, Butcher's here. Butcher is very much still here." Very great episode for Simon Pegg. Like, he was great in this. I think he was finally just, you know, given material to work with, and I thought he did a very nice job in this episode. So. Unfortunately, we won't see him again in the future. Spoiler alert, I guess. But yeah, no, he was very good in this episode. Like, I haven't been the most interested in, you know, Huey's little side story here. I don't know, like, don't get me wrong, it's still good, it's still engaging, but it's just like less interesting to me than like everything else going on. But the way that they wrapped it up here, it was like, okay, yeah, no, this was just a very good episode. Or this was like the best episode for that story. And then, yeah, you got some like more Frenchie stuff that I think is pretty good as well. Like Frenchie feeling guilty about his past. Is this the right time for those guilts to be consuming him? Not particularly. But yeah, you know, he's feeling guilty. He turned himself into the police and all that. Very interested to see what comes from that, I guess. Yeah, and then I think the other interesting stuff in this episode was just everything with Vought. And, like, they did some very funny, like, MCU, like, criticism and whatnot. And it's so perfect because the same day, the same day that they released this episode of The Boys, where A-Train has this, like, where, you know, there's this bit where A-Train is, like, talking about his movie on a stage, and he's like, "We just finished the reshoots." This is a line in The Boys. He's like, "We just finished the reshoots, and my movie is now the most expensive movie of all time." That means it has to be good, right? I could not believe that the day that they make that joke in The Boys, we get the news, we get the story of Captain America having a budget of like $375 million. It is so crazy. Bro, you know what else is crazy? Like, Firecracker last week gets exposed for being a PDF file. And the characters in The Boys are like, or like the conservative characters in the Boys are like defending her or whatever. And we've been, one of the big talking points about The Boys this season is that, man, the politics are just it's going too far. These politics are just, they're just in your face. They're not even accurate to reality anymore. Literally this past weekend, we get the Dr. Disrespect controversy, which if you're not if you're not like aware of it, I actually made videos about it on my main channel. Link in the description below to the main channel. You should definitely go check it out. But like, the TLDR about the whole Dr. Disrespect situation. He's like a really popular streamer that gets exposed for or he admits to it. He admitted to it at some point. But anyways, it became known that he was sending inappropriate like sexual messages to a minor. and this stuff, a lot of this is on like, you know, political grounds. He is seen as a somewhat conservative figure, and there have been a lot of people like low-key defending him. How the boys manages to have this firecracker storyline, and then right along with it, we get this whole Dr. Disrespect situation. It's like, listen, I've been sitting here saying that it's like, okay, are we just like forgetting the boys? Because I feel like they've always been pretty in your face with the politics and whatnot. Now this stuff isn't even parody. It just is it just is reality. It just is reality. Because Dr. Disrespect still has a very loyal fan base. It's so freaking crazy, bro. It is so crazy. But anyways, oh my god. I think the best scene of the episode was the scene where Homelander is at first seemingly doing a nice thing where he's like telling Ryan like, "Hey Ryan, you can do whatever you want." And Ryan's like, "I want to help people." Like actually not in a fake manner. And Homelander's like, "Oh, okay, Ryan, that's great. You want to help this girl that's being like sexually harassed by the director guy?" And Ryan, and yeah, like Ryan, like kind of meekly tells the director guy to like, "Hey, leave her alone and whatnot," and apologize to her. And the way that Homelander. And, you know, the brilliant part about this is that I'm actually not sure if Homelander is like actively trying to manipulate Ryan, or if this is just Homelander being a demented person. But it's like he's doing this technically kind of sort of good thing and, you know, helping Ryan stop this guy from sexually harassing the girl. In turn, but while doing that, he like prods Ryan into having the girl just like beat the shit out of the guy. And the brilliant part about this scene is that on the one hand, right, they're doing kind of a good thing, and you're kind of proud of Ryan for wanting to help people, but Homelander is like poisoning Ryan's mind by like teaching him to help people in a way that's not good. But even while you're thinking that, it's low-key satisfying seeing a fucking disgusting, you know, Jeffrey Epstein type person get the shit beaten out of him. Or sorry, not Jeffrey. Well, kind of Jeffrey Epstein. Not really Jeffrey Epstein. I meant to say Harvey Weinstein, but you know what I mean. It's kind of satisfying seeing a Harvey Weinstein Hollywood type get the shit beaten out of him. It's kind of satisfying. You would be lying if you said it wasn't. And it was a brilliant scene. It made you kind of uncomfortable that you were kind of enjoying it. You know? Anyways, it's another solid episode. But yeah. All right, let's get into the last story of the day, or the last thing I watched. So, I watched the first episode of Suicide Squad Isekai. So, I knew the show was coming out, but I had no idea it was dropping yesterday, and B, I didn't realize it was a show. I thought it was going to be a movie, but it is a Suicide Squad anime. It is, and when you watch it, it very much feels like an anime. I believe it must have been worked on by like an anime studio, and that's interesting in and of itself. The other interesting thing is that, at least I watched it on Hulu, technically kind of Disney Plus, but you know, you can now watch Hulu stuff on Disney Plus. So it's already like a really weird situation because I'm watching this new Suicide Squad show kind of on Disney Plus. It's very strange, right? Actually, this is yet another situation of Warner Brothers Discovery selling their shows off to other platforms. Again, it makes a lot of sense for them to do it. But yeah, it was already like a really weird situation. But yeah, the other weird part about it is that at least on Hulu, there isn't an English dub. You have to read the subtitles, which is something that I prefer to do anyways. Like anytime I'm watching like a piece of foreign media, I'm always just wanting to watch it in whatever the original state of it is, right? If it like I want to watch it in the original language, I want to get the artist's intent. That's always how I engage with media. So I don't watch anime often, but anytime I do, I'm watching that shit subbed. You know what I mean? But they force you to do it here anyways. So that's kind of interesting. If you are illiterate, then you might not want to check this out. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed it. So I was actually really into it at first because it starts off and Harley Quinn and the Joker, they're like running away, or they're driving away from the police, and it's very anime, right? Like it's very wacky. Like the car doesn't have a steering wheel, it just has a piano. So Joker is playing the piano and he's controlling the car that way, and that's like the music that is the score and all of that. And it's very cool. I really like this like weird anime Joker. I thought it was actually pretty neat to see that. Anime Harley Quinn is kind of Harley Quinn. I guess Harley Quinn is already kind of an anime character to a certain extent. And then I like that Harley and Joker get separated at some point, and then Harley Quinn is then the Joker ends up having to abandon Harley because the cops start chasing him. And what's actually interesting about this Harley and Joker dynamic is that Joker doesn't seem as abusive as he usually is. Like, I don't actually like other times, like the Joker would just abandon Harley because he just doesn't care about her. It doesn't necessarily seem to be the case here. I mean, I guess it could end up being the case that he just abandoned her because he didn't care about her, but I don't know. This Joker felt more like a loving husband or boyfriend. But anyways, then we see Katana. Remember from Suicide Squad? We see Katana. Her sword can steal people's souls. You don't want to mess with Katana. And then we never see Katana steal people's souls. My one hope for this series, because we don't see it in this first episode, my one hope for this series is that we see Katana take somebody's soul. If they don't, then it'll be a failure. But it was neat. You get a little fight scene with Katana and Harley, and she like arrests her. And then this is where it gets weird. So I didn't know this because I'm not a weeb. Isekai is apparently like a genre of anime. And it is a specific genre of anime where the characters end up traveling to like a fantasy land, and they become like fish out of water characters. Apparently that's an entire subgenre of anime. I did not know that. So color me surprised when, like at first it's just like a kind of a normal DC show. And then you see the Suicide Squad form. The Suicide, Squad consists of Harley Quinn and Deadshot, Clayface, which is actually an interesting addition. I really like the version of Clayface in this because he's more of like a flamboyant actor, kind of like actually a little bit like Clayface in the Harley Quinn show. Actually, now that I think about it, he's actually kind of similar to that. He also weirdly breaks the fourth wall. Because he's always commenting on the narrative as it's happening. So he's kind of a fun character, and then we also have Peacemaker and King Shark. So that's the Suicide Squad. So the team forms up, and then Amanda Waller sends them into a fantasy world, and they're just in this weird ass like fantasy world where with like goblins and magic. And it's like at first I was really liking how an anime studio handles like the world of DC. Like that was really interesting to me. And then they get sent into a fantasy world. And part of me, and I admit it, I have my, this is my biases. I was like, oh, this is like anime bullshit. That's how I felt. It was like, okay, so this is just another generic anime. But you still do have these DC characters that are fish out of water characters in, anime bullshit. So we'll see. I liked the first episode. I was really into it at first, and then I was kind of caught off guard with the whole fantasy world situation. But even still, even once they got into the fantasy world, I wasn't not enjoying it. It was just like it just became less interesting to me. So first impression, it's fun. And I would have watched, they released the first 3 episodes. I just haven't had the time to watch them all, so I would have had my first impressions of the first 3 episodes, but I just didn't have time to watch them all. But my first impression of the first episode is that I like it. I think it's fun, but just be warned that the Isekai thing for weebs was like a dead giveaway of what the show is, but I just wasn't aware of that. And also, I don't know if this is the same on Max, because I believe it's on Max as well. They don't have dubs, so if you want to hear like English language speaky talkie, you can't do that. At least on Disney Plus / Hulu, you have to read the subtitles. But also, grow up. How about that? How about you did that? But anyways, that's going to be it for me for this episode of Nerdy Movie News Roundup. Let me know what your thoughts are on any and everything that we talked about today, or whatever. I can't talk anymore. I'm tired. Bye.